So welcome to the first of our spring grower discussion webinars focused on greenhouse management for this month, and we'll see how it goes. In terms of interest, participation, we could keep it going, field topics throughout the season. But the idea was to reduce the amount of formal presentation time, have a grower kick things off with some issue that they're going to show us some real life examples of in their greenhouse in this case, and then open it up for both questions and sharing. So Julie Rubaud of Red Wagon Plants in Hinesburg, thanks so much for kicking it off this year. She's going to walk us around with her greenhouse on her phone, so she won't be able to take questions while she's doing that. You could put them in the chat, and if there's something she's looking at right then that you want her to discuss, I will call that out. Otherwise, she'll be back at her computer in the not too distant future, and we can open it up then. If you're not speaking, please do mute yourself just so we don't have those kinds of interruptions. And with that, take it away, Julie.
Thanks so much, Vern. I'm so excited to do this. I'm at an awkward angle. I'm going to move my, the squatting can only work for so long. I'm going to take you guys on a little tour of our production greenhouse, which is, we're in Hinesburg, and we have 10 greenhouses, and this one is where all the germination happens and where all the actual work happens. We have a work zone in one place. We have a couple work zones, but the main one's here, and then all the plants get moved to other greenhouses. But this is where all the propagation happens. And I thought it'd be a good place to kick off this tour, because that's probably where most of us are all in propagation mode this early in the season. And I'll talk about watering as I take us on the little tour. And because watering, I feel, is like the one thing that as an organic greenhouse grower, you have some control over. And there's watering and ventilation, we have some control over. And there's just so many things we don't have control over. And I want to give a giant shout out to all the people who have taught me how to water. Carl is one of them. Wiz, you have taught me a ton about greenhouse growing. Everything that Extension and Vern has done, I've learned so much over the years. I've been doing this for, I don't know, 26 years, 27 years. I've been growing just plants for the past 16 years. And before, I used to grow veggies and plants. So I've been a veggie production grower too. But yeah, it takes a lifetime, I think, to really learn how to water properly. And we grow in Fort Light from Carl at Vermont Compost Company. And we used to grow in Fort V, and we switched over to Fort Light because I think it drains a little bit better. But we recommend Fort V for our home gardeners, because Fort V is better for people who might not water enough. And it's better for containers, I think, that might dry out. So most of our customers are buying Fort V to like grow window boxes or, you know, flowering things. They also buy it to start their own seeds. This time of year, we're selling bagged Fort V. And I just think it's a little more forgiving than Fort Light in terms of watering, but in a greenhouse, we wanted something a little more free draining. So that's why we switched over to Fort Light, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago, I can't remember. But we love both mixes, Carl, don't get me wrong. But we've enjoyed watering this Fort Light a lot. We keep things on the dry side, and today's a cloudy day, and the person who usually waters this greenhouse hasn't watered yet. And to me, it looks like it doesn't need to be watered. Somebody else might come into this greenhouse and say, oh, wow, things are really dry. But we keep things really, really dry. And I'll talk more about that as we walk around. So I'm gonna take my camera off right here just to reduce the internet bandwidth I'm using. And then I'm gonna use my phone to take us on a little tour. Does anyone wanna ask a question before I get started? Any clarifying things? No, I'm good to go? Okay. Okay, what I'm gonna do is use the computer for the audio because that's working, but I'll walk around with the phone for the video. Can you guys hear all that?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So here's a bunch of onions. Some are not germinated, some obviously are. And when I was saying like that the house seems overwatered right now, like for the morning, I would like it to be a little drier. I don't know if you guys can see well enough on that, but everything's pretty wet. And it's a cloudy day, so I'm definitely not going to water anything on that table. The watering tools we use are this wand, which is from Dram. It's the 400 PL breaker with, I think this is the 24-inch wand, and then the brass on off valve, which is, you know, expensive, but when you're watering for hours a day, it's definitely worth it. You can see my janky setup now. Okay. So we grow plants in 128s, which you can see right here. And we also grow plants in 288s, which you can see here. And this is a bench we're renting out to Bread and Butter Farm right now, so I'm not going to talk about what they've got going on there. But these are all herbs started in 128s. Again, they're really uniformly watered, and I think that's the thing that's the absolute hardest is being even in your watering. And that's what I feel like I've had a hard time over the years training people on, but after about 3 years, people get it. And I think it really does take 3 years to learn how to water properly. But as you can tell, everything's super even. And the person who waters this greenhouse, I think this is her 4th season, and she's just doing an amazing job. She's also the person that does all our seeding. So she really cares about the germination and the watering, and the two are so incredibly linked. And then we do onions for growers, probably like you guys do in open 1020s, or some of you might. And those we don't sell as bedding plants, but they go straight to growers. And everything's looking really good, I think, this year. The germination's been fantastic, especially on things that are usually kind of hard to do. We do a lot of like some weirdo herbs, like this marshmallow. We do, you know, just about every herb possible. And some are definitely harder to germinate than others, but Sarah, who's our seeder, has done a really good job this year with incredible germination. And we also did build a germination chamber, which I'll show you in a second. But you can see like the edges of those 128s are a little more watered than the centers, and that's because we aim for the edges always. We water the edges of the trays, and the centers sort of take care of themselves. Somebody taught me that a long time ago. I can't remember who it was, but we always aim the wand at the centers. I mean, at the edges, almost at the plastic where the two trays come together. That's where we aim the wand when we're watering. These are onions for Flack Family Farm. So people will give us their trays if they want us to custom grow something. This is how we start peppers, eggplant, tomatoes. We do about 25 plants in a 2-inch cell or so. It's a 4-pack, and then we split them up and prick them out. And then I'm gonna bring you guys over to the germination chamber. Lots of little alpine strawberries. Those are kind of hard to germinate. And Sarah's been doing a great job. So she hand waters. She organizes the greenhouse so that all the things that need her, most careful attention are closest to her workstation. These are the heat mats. So everything here has to get checked for water multiple times a day. And this is her workstation right behind the heat mats. And she really, I wish she were here. She had a doctor's appointment this morning. I'd love to have her talk to you about how she sets up her workspace. But so she does all her seeding over here. And we use a combination of vibro seeders and vacuum seeders and hand seeding. And we print out the tags for the week of all the seeding that needs to happen. They get printed out like this, so she just uses the tags as her workflow. And each week has a folder, and each week has a manila envelope that Sarah Bacon, our production manager, who is over here working with our crew, That's Sarah Bacon. Sarah prepares all the week's folders over the winter. So we map out the week in the winter, every week of the production season, I should say. And then this is our new germination chamber that Chad built. He's not here today either, but we used some old polycarbonate scraps and some old metal conduit for the shelves. And this is our first year with this, and we've been experimenting with when to take out the trays. And we've decided that when we see about 30% germination, we pull it out. So this arnica, for example, probably by the end of the day, we'll be ready to take out. So we check it multiple times a day. And we're getting things like cosmos and marigolds to germinate in 48 hours, which is just incredible. That's how it happens. And this thing down here is like our witch's brew.
Hey, Julie, you're kind of far from the microphone, I think. It's hard to hear.
Thank you, Vern. I forgot all about that. Sorry. Should I repeat anything? Am I good?
We heard 30% germ, you take them out. Was there
Okay.
something after that?
Oh, yeah. So this little bubbling thing is just a cast iron pot with, it's something used in hydroponic grower for like indoor growing, maybe people doing cannabis. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Chad brought it in, who works here. And it both heats the water and bubbles it. And that's where all the moisture and the heat come from for this whole thing. And the germination's just been amazing. We're really happy with this. So once not all the trays go in the germination chamber, just the things that are a little harder. And we've just found that like the evenness of that moisture, super helpful. We also have these overhead wobblers, which you can see on some of the benches, but we've had mixed luck with those. They tend to drip and they tend to, I mean, they're nice if you had one whole bench of just one thing, but our production is so varied. As you can see, it's like a real tapestry of all sorts of things at different stages. And we really cater to what the tray size, the cell size, we base it on what the plant likes. Like, what does that plant want to germinate in? We don't base anything on how's it going to be easier to water this. So we end up doing some hand watering with a watering can, a really fine mist watering can. Like this whole bench in front of us that I'm aiming at, a lot of those trays get watered by hand. It takes a long time, but we end up having much better germination. So in the end, it's worth it. Again, because we grow such a varied amount, a huge variety of plants. We have like, not all from seed, but 1,200 varieties or something on our plant list.
And Julie,
yep.
I have a question. Is it all visual, your assessment of if watering's needed, or are you ever?
100% visual, yeah. So it's not, we don't have any kind of, instruments measuring the watering. And it's never on a timer. It's 100% visual. And we also go by weight. So we pick up trays all the time. I don't know if all soils do this, but this soil sometimes can look dry on the surface, but then you pick it up and it's actually quite heavy. So if something's germinating, we do want to keep that top layer. Somewhat moist, but if it's super heavy and we know all the water's like sinking in the bottom and there's already roots heading down there, we're not going to water it just because it's dry on the surface. So we pick up trays and move them all the time. Mm-hmm. We also rotate trays all the time as if they were, cookies in the oven. Because there's just like people's habits. They hold the wand in a certain way every day. And then so it makes a corner particularly wet or something. So we'll just rotate that tray and then we're not asking the human to change their behavior, but we're just moving the tray around.
There was a question about what kind of heat mat you use.
Oh, they're just the ones that are like, they're in griffins, they're black, they're stapled into the bench, so I can't show them to you, but they're they're like 1 foot by 10 feet, something like that. They're black with gray stripes. They're like, I'm gonna switch it so my phone is off and my computer's back on. It's kind of awkward to hold the computer and the phone while I walk around. So I'm gonna set it down for a second. And maybe we can just have like a little conversation. And the watering can we use, I'm gonna show it to you. I can just walk around with the laptop too.
So I just want to remind people, if they're new to this, you got to go back to gallery view, find Julie on her computer screen, and then click on speaker view again if you want to see the full image of the greenhouse on your screen.
Okay, so this is it's the Dram watering can, this yellow one, and it has the rosette on it is like this. It's a pretty fine, I don't know if you can see it. It's pretty fine. It's just gentle. We also just got, where'd they go?
Actually, just so you know what's happening here, speaker view is still your phone.
Oh, it is.
Um,
I think that I'll stop the video on
Yeah.
the phone. Does that work?
Let's try that.
Is that something on your end that you changed?
Yeah, I think it's fine for me, Vern. I had tried to make Julie the spotlight for everybody earlier when she was on her phone, and then I removed that. So I think it on my end, it looks fine.
Okay, I did it by selecting add pin. That works for me.
Okay. Is everyone good? Okay. So that's the watering can we use. I don't know. It's just the Dram 5-liter can. We just like, we only hand water very delicate things that are, tiny seeds of some obscure herb or cut flower or something. Most everything else is watered with that Dram 400 PL breaker and the wand, also very gently. But no matter what you're watering with, like evenness, I can't stress that enough. We aim to never spot water, except heat mats and a few small celled like 288s on a hot day, or even a 128 on a hot day. But we really aim to just never have to spot water. It's a giant, I'm just gonna move away from the soil filler. Does anybody want to see the soil filler in action?
Sure.
So this is Rebecca. This is Allie. Allie's learning how to use this, so I don't want to put pressure on her. But this is from SD Machinery. And we're filling hanging baskets today with it. And we pull it out of the greenhouse by hand. We used to do it with a golf cart, and we decided that we can just do it by hand pretty easily. And then we fill it with we receive about 10 to 20 yards a week of the Fort Light. And we fill it with, we fill the soil filler with the bucket of our tractor. And then we push it back in. 3 people can push the machine back in with about 2 yards of soil in it, which is pretty cool. Okay, so there's a lot of questions in the chat. Gabby, so it's the heat mats that are like, they hold 8 trays, I think. You'll see them in Griffin's. If you want me to send you the link, I can. It's the only ones that are like black and sort of a narrow skinny strip with gray stripes on it. Okay, Digger's Mirth is asking recommendations for technicians that focus on greenhouse heating and cooling. So for heating, we just use like the plumbers who hook up the heaters. I don't know if you're looking for something more technical, like advice on how to heat and cool, or if you're looking for actual like systems. Is somebody from Diggers want to unmute?
Hey there, this is Hillary.
Hey, Hilly.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Julie. Thank you. Yeah, it just seems like we have random people coming in who don't necessarily understand it. I'm mostly looking for electricians who kind of understand how greenhouses work. The heating's kind of not a big deal, but it was like, oh, maybe there are people around that know how these things work.
I
Versus
think
somebody who comes in and just like checks out all the wires and is like,
Yeah, I just use like an electrician who they don't really have to know anything about a greenhouse. It's just wiring. Like I use RVG, Rick Gomez. He's great. He would come to Burlington. Um, and they don't know anything about greenhouses, but they don't really need to.
Okay.
If it's about like fixing motors and stuff, I don't know. We just haven't had our friend Rob, who works, at Shelburne Orchards, he fixes a lot of things for us. So I don't know. I don't know anyone who's like specializes in that. And then for heating, we use Falcon. They're super expensive, but they come when you call them, and they are really good at what they do. And they're certified to do natural gas and propane, and we're on natural gas here.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, it's not a great answer. I'm sorry. Carl's asking if we've tried any bottom watering. We don't have a setup for bottom watering, but we will occasionally do it. Like we've, experimenting with like germinating Lysianthus or something like that. Given that we're not super set up for it, I don't really know enough about it to talk about it. I've had a greenhouse in the past that had, sliding benches that would flood and drain, and they were great if you're doing like all one bench of one thing. I think that's great. We're so mixed in our production that it's hard for us to do anything that requires, that kind of uniformity in watering. Once we fill an entire house with tomatoes in 4-inch pots, that would be a great use of bottom watering. And maybe one day we'll have that. But for now, it just hasn't been worth the expense. I feel like the person watering is also sort of the eyes on the plants. And by watering, again, we're rotating trays all the time, like especially with tomatoes, to keep them from getting leggy. We're taking the trays that are growing on the edges and swapping them out it's like turning a compost pile, right? We're taking the ones in the middle that are kind of hot and not getting a lot of airflow and maybe getting overwatered, swapping them out, putting them on the edge, and putting the trays on the edge back in the middle. And that helps have even growth, because when we send out a truck of tomato plants, we want them ideally to be all the same size, because that looks better in the stores that they're going to. They're easier to handle to get in and out of the truck. And it's just like, maybe it's a little bit of just grower's challenge. Like I like that. I like trying to produce a uniform tomato plant. And watering has so much to do with how things grow and like how uniform they are, because anytime you get one side of the tray getting more water than the other, you're going to have uneven growth. So the plant growth follows the watering patterns. And yeah, that's why, like I said, moving the trays around sometimes is more helpful than trying to teach the humans how to water more evenly.
Hey, Julie, have you ever done brushing to make the tomato plants
Yeah.
stockier?
Yeah, we do that a lot. When I move them, I pick them up and sort of drop them. I handle them a little bit roughly. I, brush them with my hand. We have roll up sides, as you can probably see. So these are Arnois houses that rolls up, over 5 feet tall, maybe even 5.5 feet tall. So we get tons of airflow going. We are huge proponents of airflow. Again, like I said in the beginning, watering and airflow are like two things you can control in an organic system. And we roll up sides as soon as we possibly can. And even when it's cold out, I'll vent and have the heater going at the same time just to get fresh air in a house. And to just get that airflow in there. I'm just looking at the chat again. What temperature do we keep our greenhouse at? So it depends on the house and what's in it. We try to have cool houses and warmer houses. So a cool house that has, this time of year, might have pansies and onions and some bigger veggie starts. That'll be at 50. Or the perennials that we're starting that like it cooler when they're coming out of dormancy, that'll be at 50. And then houses that have warmer things, like right now we have some house plants or begonias, we'll keep it at 62 or so at night. And then during the day we vent at 75 or 80. So a cool house will vent it at 75 and a warmer house will vent it at 80. we only have mechanical ventilation in 3 houses. That's something I'd like to improve in the future. It's just to have enough, ventilation in all the houses that we don't have to run around and roll up the sides and crack and open doors all the time. It's really expensive to wire a house for ventilation and, to put in all those systems, but it's really worth it. So we do a lot of manual rolling up of sides and cracking doors when, because only 3 houses have mechanical ventilation.
So there's a question, what's the temperature of the house you're in now?
So this is the Germination House, the prop house, we keep it at 62 at night. Just because there's such a wide array of things. So it's a little warm for some of the things, but like the onions and things that are in here now that are like going to be sold in a couple of weeks, they'll go out to the cold frame or an unheated house really soon. So anything that's in a 4-pack or a 4-inch pot in this house is going to be heading out really quickly. And then all the benches become plug trays. So it's just part of our progression as we, fill houses, we move things around and we harden off just about everything we sell. We don't harden off all the tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant, but all the cold hardy crops, like all the brassicas, all the lettuces, onions, all that stuff gets hardened off in unheated houses and cold frames. So, and that's a whole other watering thing. Like part of hardening off is cutting back on watering and letting things dry out and letting their roots develop a little bit more. And I think that act of, wilting and then perking up again, I think it strengthens the plants a little bit. So, and we do that to tomatoes too. We let them wilt once or twice during their lifetime, before we sell them. We just let them wilt, and people are horrified to see it sometimes if someone walks in the greenhouse and all the tomato plants are wilting. But it strengthens the plant, in my opinion. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy about that. I was an English and philosophy major. I don't really know anything about growing, like from books. So it's just what people have taught me, what I've observed. But that's what it looks like to me, that they get stronger from that wilting.
I think you've figured quite a bit out, Julie.
I've had a lot of help. I'm gonna keep saying I've had so much help, and yeah, like it's amazing to think of all the things I've learned from all of you and the programs with Extension. And now it's really cool. After all these years, I'm learning from people that work for me. Like they know more sometimes about the plants than I do. And it's so exciting. And, and there's a couple of people on staff who actually did study botany or horticulture. And like, I'm learning a ton from them. And it's really, really cool. And I love that aspect of growing, that it takes a whole lifetime to really learn what you're doing.
Great. So keep putting questions in the chat. That seems to be working pretty well, or people could pipe up.
Yeah.
I had one about HAF fans. I don't
Yep.
see them in this house. Do you have them and do you use them?
Yep, we have them. I recommend them highly. Again, like as we build houses, we can't always like put in all the wiring that we need right off the bat, but it's always the first thing that happens. Like I'll put in HAF fans before I put in mechanical ventilation, because mechanical ventilation we can do ourselves by manually rolling up sides and stuff, but HAF fans, we can't do that ourselves. And it makes a huge difference. So, like we buy ours, I think from Griffin's normally, and they have formulas. You just tell them, how big your house is. If you call the construction department at Griffin's, they're super helpful. There's a guy that is named Bud at Griffin's Construction, and he can answer a lot of those questions. We've learned a lot from him. Sometimes when I see questions on the veggie listserv, I think they can call Griffin. Like your vendors, always have a lot of answers. Vendors know a lot. And that's been a place I go to all the time, is calling, Carl at Vermont Compost. I've learned so much from Carl over the years, and that's a vendor grower relationship. The technical department at Griffin's, super knowledgeable. And over the years, they have really done a ton of work to learn how to do organic production. So they can actually answer organic questions, which they couldn't, even 10 years ago. People like Carol at IPM Labs, oh my God, UVM entomology, Cheryl and Margaret, amazing resource. Like there are so many incredible resources we have access to. Sorry, that was a tangent. HAF fans, great. Yes, use them. For people who don't know what those are, they are just in the house and they circulate the air. So it just keeps things moving. It cuts down on fungus gnats. Oh, I wanted to touch on fungus gnats. So fungus gnats are entirely related to watering. And like having a house that's clean, you know, like keeping your house clean, no weeds, no debris rotting in the corners. That'll cut down on fungus gnats. But having wet pots, that's what really attracts fungus gnats. So I am like, here's a really wet pot. A lot of growers, I don't know if you can tell. I think a lot of newer growers, I'm gonna get my computer dirty, but like think like this is how pots should be. I don't know if you can tell just how dark that is. And then this is what I think it should be. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but so the pot on my right, this lighter pot, like I still wouldn't water this today. That's still really, you know, it feels heavy. It doesn't feel super light. This feels really heavy. But this is a fungus gnat, you know, nest waiting to happen right here. So just keep an eye on that. You really, if you're having fungus gnat problems, ask yourself, do my trays look this dark most of the time? If they do, stop watering for like 3 days. And then teach yourself to not water so much. And that'll really cut down on fungus gnats. But
Do you ever use the BT treatment for fungus gnats?
No, we've stopped. We don't use BT. What do we use for fungus gnats? Is I think the nematodes that we water with every few weeks, we use nematodes. I think that helps with fungus gnat larvae, but I think most of our fungus gnat control, like we don't have fungus gnats anymore, like ever, has been through changing how we water, or just being careful how we water. And
So there's an exclamation point about 3 days of not watering.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Lots of times we go 3 days without watering. On a gray spell in March, yes, absolutely. We can go sometimes 5 days without watering. Not necessarily every single tray, but there can be some, if something's overwatered, it could take, it depends on the soil you're in, but it can take 5 days to get to fix that overwatered situation. It's really on a grade, like I should have started with this. I can't believe I didn't even say this. Weather, the sun is really what determines like how you water, right? So when I'm teaching people how to water, I always say, find out what the weather's going to do today, but also find out what the weather's going to do in the next 3 days. If we're about to enter a gray, cold spell and the house is like maybe on the dry side, but you know, not like not dying for water, I won't water that day. I'll wait and let it really dry out. Because if you water heavily, even on a sort of partly cloudy day, and then you're heading into 3 days of gray and cold, or a week of gray and cold, which is pretty common in March, that house is going to stay overwatered that whole time. Those plants aren't really, the less they're photosynthesizing, the less they're drinking, the less the sun is like, you know, heating up the soil and evaporating that water. So yeah, not watering for 3 days in certain weather situations is really normal. In a greenhouse, like outdoors, if it's windy, yeah, you might have to water it like in a cold frame or something. But in a greenhouse, yes.
Your audio is getting a little funky. It's not too bad, but I'm not
What'd
sure
you
what's
say?
going on. Your audio just got a little funky. I don't know.
There's an airplane going overhead. Maybe that's why.
And you've got questions in the, yeah, questions in the
Okay.
chat for you.
Okay. What do we use to water with the nematodes? Oh, we use a dosatron. So it's a dosatron that's on a cart. A dosatron is like it's a device that like sucks up a solution that has a either, you know, it in conventional greenhouses it'll have like the soluble fertilizer, and it feeds it mixed with it. You can calibrate it, and it feeds it up into your hose, so it comes out your wand. And we have a dosatron that's on a little cart, so we take it greenhouse to greenhouse. You know, other growers that use soluble fertilizer, like conventional growers, they'll have a dosatron that's like piped into their whole system because they're watering with soluble fertilizer all the time, or a lot of the time. We don't use any fertilizer. Shout out to Carl's Soil. The only thing we ever fertilize are perennials that have been sitting around that, you know, maybe it's July or August and they're showing a little heat stress, Carl soil has enough fertility in it for all vegetables. Like if you're a veggie grower, you never, and you're using, you know, Vermont compost soil, you never ever need to fertilize. I don't know how to grow in any other soil. I've never grown in any other soil. So that's another thing I have to say is like, I only am as good a grower as the soil I grow in. And if I had to learn how to use another type of soil, there'd be quite a learning curve. Carl makes it very easy. Someone's asking if we're wholesale and retail. We do both. And in retail, some of our retail zones are watered by our retail staff. And because the plants are moving out fairly quickly and we don't have time to train everybody on how to be a perfect waterer, they get less training in how to water. And because the plants are mature at that point, it's less of an issue. But they just get, you know, told to not let plants dry out too much because customers don't want to see a really dry plant. If customers came back and saw how dry we run our houses, they would think we don't know what we're doing. So we water differently for full grown plants that are heading out the door than we do obviously for the new plants that are just germinating. Zach Woods, herb farmer, germination sometimes tricky. Do you ever get a crust on top during a long germ time? We do, and boy, I think that you probably grow things that take longer to germinate than we do. Like we have some perennials that we always play around with trying to do from seed that can take like a year to germinate, you know, literally. So it's not, we don't grow a lot of those types of things that take a super long time to germinate. And we don't let a crust happen on stuff that's germinating. I guess we water it enough so that there isn't a crust. We do get a crust on, you know, chives. Like I was just holding up those chives. They don't have a lot of leaf cover because the plant's so vertical. So sometimes a crust forms on that. Certain herbs like rosemary that don't fill out the pot really quickly, sometimes a crust forms on that. The crust isn't a huge issue, but for germination, it obviously is. What I would try to do in that case is use vermiculite instead of soil. So we cover our seeds in different things. Like sometimes seeds just get pressed in without cover. Sometimes they get pressed in and the tray just gets a little shake and just that motion covers the seed. And then sometimes we use vermiculite and sometimes we use just the Fort Light, like sprinkled on really lightly. So it really depends on what the seeds are. And that was one of Sarah's notes, our head seeding person. She wanted me to tell you guys like the depth of the seed and how much you cover it is so critical to good germination. And watering, that relates to watering, because when you're watering, if you water too roughly, you're burying that seed and inhibiting germination for certain things. So it's super important to know what you're germinating and go online and read about germination. So even if you're growing cut flowers, find a seed source that you don't necessarily have to buy your seeds, but read their website, like Gelito Seeds. It's out of Europe. Their website has so much technical information on germination, and they carry such a huge, broad array of seeds. Like they probably have a lot of information about obscure herbs on there. They don't carry just like perennials and annuals. They carry just a huge array of seeds, and they have a novel on every variety and how to germinate it. And study those things. Like Sarah, our germinator, our seeder, she is our germinator. She spends the winter reading those things. She makes notes, she makes a guide, she has a booklet that's with her. She refers to those resources all the time when she's seeding. It's super important.
There was a question about mice management earlier.
Oh, yeah. We don't have mice, we have rats, which is worse. And we use, we have permission from NOFA to use an organic rodent bait in boxes around the greenhouses. And I hate to do that because they were a grass-based dairy farm, and they didn't use grain for a long time. And then they got chickens in, and with grain, the rat population really increased. So, and then they stopped using grain. Anyway, it went back and forth, but the rat population's gone up and down. And there's been years where we literally lost, tens of thousands of dollars in like cucumbers and squash that just we couldn't seed it. So we now use I hate it. I hate that we use poison bait, but it's been the only way to keep them under control. Now that the animals are gone, maybe we'll be able to go back to traps. I'm hoping. Any other questions?
There's one asking if you have ridge vents.
We have it in one house, and because we're not growing tomatoes like through the summer, we're the bulk of our production's done in June. And at that point, we use it. We use the roof vent that we have, but if I were to start over for what we do, I wouldn't use them. If I were a tomato grower or somebody using greenhouses to grow all summer, I would definitely have a roof vent. They're great. They cool the house down really quickly. The airflow is incredible. It's where we have our lunch space because it's like so much more comfortable to be in there with the roof vent. But we don't, reskinning a house with a roof vent is just such a headache. And I've just decided it's not worth it. We used to have 3 houses with roof vents, but we took them down at some point because nobody likes to reskin a house with a roof vent. It's just a pain in the butt. Efficiency suggestions for best ways to prick plants from 1020 open flats. I think it depends on the plant. We don't do a ton of that. Most of our stuff is in plug trays. The only things that we're like broadcasting and then pricking out are some of the fussier herbs and sometimes perennials that get vernalized in sand. Like they go in a little Ziploc bag of sand in the freezer or the fridge, and then we'll broadcast that on an open 1020 or just like a rectangle. And we just use like a knife, like those little Johnny's like red serrated knives, those are a good little hand tool, and we'll just separate them out by hand. And we try to batch all our work. So like it could be one person, like that's all they're doing. They're separating out the little plants and laying them out, and then another person's planting them. So our production is set up always like a little bit assembly line. Like we're always like figuring out what's the fastest way to do something. And if one person's doing the pricking out, then the other person's laying out, and then maybe a third person's planting. And we literally walk around the workstation. So we create like a little like choo-choo train of process. So one person's laying out plants, and then the next person's like behind them potting them, and then the next person's behind them putting the tags in. And then we try to finish like the whole deck, the whole like 16 by 4 foot work table all at once. And then we refill it with the trays coming out of the soil filling machine. So that didn't necessarily answer your question, but I hope it did. And then strategies to avoid or deal with aphids. Oh, wow, huge topic. I think we're going to be talking about IPM in one of these sessions, but we have a lot of strategies for aphid control. We knock on wood, again, because our crew is amazing. We don't have an aphid problem anymore. We almost never have an aphid problem anymore. We've had huge aphid problems in the past and like had to throw away, again, tens of thousands of dollars of like peppers or something, which is a shame because if a pepper plant has a few aphids on it, it's still going to make great peppers once it goes out in the garden. But our wholesale customers don't want to see aphids. Our home gardener customers don't want to see a single aphid. But we now try to create a balance. So there might be a few aphids here and there, but we actually want a few aphids here and there because they're a host for the beneficial wasps that we introduce. So we have a really rigorous IPM program, and we've developed it over many, many, many years. And there's not like one solution. It takes years of observation, scouting, and being super diligent with your IPM program. We don't spray, almost never do we spray an organic spray for insects. Occasionally we'll spray for powdery mildew or something like that, an organic fungicide, but we almost never spray for insects because we do have a really vibrant beneficial insect population in our greenhouses. So 2 people scout once a week every bench in this 10 greenhouse complex. It takes 2 people all day long, and then they release beneficial insects according to any hotspots that they find, whether it's thrips or aphids. Those are really the only 2 insects we have in any kind of quantity ever, and even that, it's almost like hardly at all. But we still scout every single week, even though our population of pest insects is so low. So in the early season, we use banker plants. I'm sure when we talk about IPM, we're going to go into a ton more detail in one of these sessions, but we use banker plants. And then we work with Cheryl Sullivan at UVM Entomology. She will go to any greenhouse in Vermont and help you set up an IPM program. She's absolutely amazing, amazing. I can't say enough about Cheryl. And again, vendors, the people that sell beneficial insects are a huge resource and can help you set up a program. But it's all about observation and being consistent and disciplined, and doing that scouting super consistently, taking notes. And you have to have a scientific mind. I don't. That's why I delegate all of that to people who do, because I know I don't have the focus and the discipline to do it. Okay. There's a question looking at longer life plastic, solar wrap, double or triple wall polycarbonate. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about that. I wish I did personally. Does anyone else want to chime in on that? Nathan's asking about that. Anyone? We use polycarbonate on our end walls, but we use 6 mil double poly on all our houses. I'd love to find a better solution. But so far, I think all of them are just super cost prohibitive. When we change out our plastic, we give it away. We put it on Front Porch Forum. We don't bring it to the landfill. I know it can be recycled now in a couple places in Vermont, but we try to give it away to people in the community for their wood piles or their skating rinks or whatever. So at least it stays out of the landfill. Anyone else want to unmute and talk about plastic or anything else? I think we lost Vern. No, you're
here.
Vern. Oh, there was a question about how we move greenhouses. Sorry. We use big carts. Let me see if I can show you one. Carts and trailers. And they're doing it right now, so you'll see. I think you can see. Hi, you guys. Do you mind being on a webinar?
Oh, no.
This is how we move plants.
Hi.
This is Corey and
Hello.
Becca from Bread and Butter Farm.
Hi.
So we have these 4-shelf, I don't know if you can see them. And then these 4-shelf carts go right into other greenhouses. And then these trailers go from like down to our lower greenhouse complex. And we pull them with little golf carts. I don't know if you could actually see any of that.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, cool. Golf carts are amazing. I don't know why veggie growers don't use golf carts more. They're like a quarter of the price of like those gator things, and gator things break down all the time, and golf carts don't break down. And you can get beefy tires on them, and they cost like used, I don't know, $2,000, $2,400. They're so great. Golf carts are amazing. Any other questions?
Where do you find golf carts?
John Thompson's Golf Carts in South Burlington. He sells used golf carts. They're really hard to find right now, and nobody has them because of COVID. Maybe manufacturing got messed up, or everyone's stuck at home and driving around in golf carts. I don't know. They're on Williston Road in South Burlington, and they also fix golf carts. So he comes out and like fixes it if we ever have a problem. Yeah. It'd be great in the Intervale. I mean, I guess if you're going over really rugged terrain, they're not ideal, but I think in the Intervale, they'd be perfect.
So Julie, I have a question. We're getting near the end here, but you've mentioned several times your amazing staff. And can you just speak a little bit to what kind of training regimen you have, or meeting weekly, and what kind of things do you do?
Yeah, so there's a core staff of 7 people who they're on payroll year round. Like some are super part-time in the winter, but they're like, doing that germination research or building germination chambers, or, we have projects to keep them employed part-time through the winter. that planning work that I was showing you, like the folders and the envelopes for each week of the year, that takes a huge amount of time. Scheduling all the seeding, all the potting up of plugs, the ordering of the plugs. So those 7 people are like our core management team. And then we expand to 24 people or so, 25 people once retail and production and deliveries are happening. And those 7 people just help manage. So we just break it down into departments of production, retail, and wholesale. And we have a pretty good training program. Like every department has like a checklist of everything people have to learn. And we really try to make training collaborative. So employees are training each other. It's not just the manager training the employee, but it's like the new employee going out and like finding out what they need to learn. So they take more ownership of their training. And then very quickly, people get given lots of responsibility, like, you know, watering a greenhouse or, it's a really short season. So people have to learn and become responsible really, really quickly. There's very few people here who just like stand there and pot up all day, you know. Those are like the choice jobs here. I wish I had that job sometimes. Those are the jobs that a lot of people want and are easy to fill, but the jobs that, you know, require a little more finesse are sometimes harder to fill. It's hard to find people with broad plant experience. It really is. But yeah, we have a buddy system with training. Like we have a whole training protocol kind of that people go through. Again, I've had tons of help with this. You know, I've worked with business consultants. I take seminars in this, you know, I like take it really seriously, like how to train people for a really short season is super critical. There's no way this business could work if we didn't have that kind of training system in place. This has been really fun. I like the Zoom thing is so weird because I just want to have a conversation, but it's really hard to do that.
Well, Julie, I just want to thank you. This has been really remarkable. You've shared so much information in such a short time. Super appreciate it. And I know there'll be a lot of people watching this after the fact too. And I just feel bad for all the presenters that have to follow you and try and meet
Oh
the high
my
level
God,
of-
no. The presenters that like, seriously, like you know, this isn't false humility, really. Like I just am so dependent on everybody else for anything I know. And I hate coming up here and sounding like I'm the expert because seriously, it's all like, I'm riding on a lot of people's coattails, shoulders, whatever the expression is.
Well, we've got a great community and it's just awesome to all be learning from one another. And I really appreciate you sharing all of your information. I hope you just didn't crash the used golf cart market. But anyway, with the commissions,
I have one on hold with John Thompson. If anyone takes my golf cart, I'll be rip shit.
Well, the commissions you're going to get for Carl, you know, you might be able to actually step up to that.
Yeah, I had great pleasure returning my my whatever they're called, those gators, after I discovered the beauty of golf carts. Oh man, yeah, gators just break down constantly. So
well, thanks again.
Thank
We're
you.
at 10 o'clock, so we'll let everybody go and hope to see a lot of you again next week. Big round of applause for Julie. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, Vern. Bye, Carl. Bye, everybody. Bye, Becky.